Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Guzinski. Oh my goodness. If you are I don't know, TikToker? Is that what it's called? A viewer of the TikTok, a purveyor of TikTok? You may recognize this man. He has an incredible TikTok. Are they called channels? Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I even have TikTok for this podcast, but I don't know anything about it. Oh my goodness. Anyways, Nir has an incredible TikTok channel, and he has a huge following there and on Instagram. He went viral for a myriad of different things that he does. He has a really cool series where he plays 3 different characters, 3 different roommates in a house together, and as an aside, anytime it comes up on my feed, I just get so happy because it's just so funny, and I just hear myself saying, tabernacle all the time. But he went viral, and as a Vancouverite, I love this. He went viral because he was in Vancouver and found the worst Vancouver bench. The bench literally was, if you turned the bench 180 degrees, the view would have been this spectacular Vancouver landscape of oceans and mountains and trees, but the bench was turned to face a highway. And so we posted about it online and went viral. Of course, pissed off a bunch of Vancouverites who would just get pissed off over anything, but that's what happens these days on the internet. Anyway, he does more than just viral TikTok videos. He is an actor. He's a theater performer. Oh my God. He just does so much great stuff. He's wildly entertaining. If you are not following him on all the socials I just mentioned, please do. It will just fill you with so much joy and happiness like it does for me. He has an incredible story to tell of his journey from, where he started to where he is now as a second act actor. I'm so excited for you to hear his story. Please enjoy the incredibly hilarious Nir Guzinski. I think, what's interesting about, and I think we as actors know, right? Especially those of us who are fairly new to this industry. Like, as soon as you say action or it counts down from 5, we kind of forget how to human. You're like, yeah, how do I walk? Yep. And they're like, just walk normally. You're like, I don't remember how to do that.
What do I do with my hands?
Exactly. I'm just like,
right.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just there. And then you're like, in a scene, you're talking, and then all of a sudden the other person's talking. You're like, my hands are still there. Focus on them. Slowly remove your hand. I look crazy.
Why, when I'm doing auditions now, if my hands aren't in the scene, I try so much to hold a tea towel and just fidget. Because I'm just let's try and make me look as normal as possible. Because usually when I'm having conversations with humans, I'm not just standing there really intently listening. I'm not.
No, usually we phase out, right?
Oh my God, totally. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Where am I? Oh shoot! Be present.
But that's one thing that I do remember from acting class is that when you don't speak, you gotta focus and listen, which is 100%. I get it, but we tend to overdo it. So we tend to I'm listening. But in real life, you can't stare at somebody in the eyes that long. I'm just okay. But on the Zoom side of on these things, you literally are looking directly at the frame and the eyes of the person. But in person, when you're this close to having a conversation, you're yeah. And it's you're barely looking at their eyes because it's hard to keep focus on somebody, especially if they're not a loved one or somebody you're very close to. Because then you kind of get am I looking too much? Are they thinking I'm flirting? What's happening? Are they?
Yes.
Am I overly do they think I'm focusing too much on them? So much goes on.
It's true. And then it's funny because then you think about exactly what we were talking about before with your hands, right? Yeah. What do I do with my eyes? Do I be a normal human in this self-tape, in this audition, in this scene, and kind of, I'm listening to the world around me. If there's another more interesting conversation going on over to my right, I'm going to kind of listen in there. Or do I need to do what the acting classes tell me? And they're really listen to your scene partner.
Listen,
when do I ever really listen to my life partner?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
right, and like I think everybody forget actors, anybody. I think we all the whole thing that we work on most, and you hear it all of like self-improvement, is that you have to declutter your brain and focus in the moment and not have to think about like my taxes and did I turn off the stove. So in everyday life, I feel we always like are you're intently listening to somebody, except if it's like an insane story. Like if the story's like I just my cat got run over by like a trailer, and you're like, what? Okay, tell me what happened. How did that happen? But most of the time, it's just a normal conversation, and you're literally like, I really got to get to work. Just yeah, I'm listening, but like, I hope this ends fast. I'm gonna shift my feet to the left. Maybe they'll notice the cue, and they'll kind of be like, okay, I'm gonna stop talking and shut up now. But people don't, so you're like, so then yeah, and then you kind of move over to where you're headed. It's just like there's so much going on. It's not as clear cut as a
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think what we could do, I guess, is say, this is a character choice I'm making to be like the character who's just a normal human being and not intently listening to the conversation. And then you just hope it comes across. But if it doesn't, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
but I think that was one of the other notes I remember from an acting teacher about the camera. And they were like, it's capturing every little thing here. So everything you do is so much bigger than what you think it is on camera. So if you do kind of go, yeah, and you kind of just do the normal, you might look crazy, I guess, on camera because your eyes are really and then people are focusing on you and they're like, why is he so fidgety? Or why is she like staring out in space all the time? I wonder if that also has some play in it, which I think it kind of does, because we're also kind of like in this bubble of like, this is our frame. So the other person's also not seeing the world, they're seeing your face. So I guess it does need to be more contained. Because I'm very expressive with hands and face. And I feel on camera sometimes it definitely comes out. And sometimes I remember early on in my like acting journey was distracting because I was like, well, why happening? Why are you doing? And then it's like, this is the frame here, like calm the hell down. And I'm like, but I don't know how to do this without realizing.
Well, yeah, with that being said, like you mentioned your early acting journey. Tell me more. Yeah. How did you get into this crazy business?
Oh, Lord. I got in young, but like, it's a long story, but I'll go through it. I was a very, I would say, lively child with a lot of energy, and it all came out a lot in voices and characters and putting on little shows in front of my family and my grandparents and my parents, and so around the age of, I would say around the age of 12 or 11 or 12, my dad and my mom were like, hey, you are a lot. There's a lot going on in your life here. You're doing a lot of little voices and sounds, and it's entertaining. Maybe we should put you in acting. So they found an agent in Montreal and signed me up. And when you're young, and when you're like 11, 10, 9, whatever the age was, I can't fully remember, but you're considered a talent, right? Like it's naturally in you. There's no necessary experience needed because you're a kid and it's innately part of you. So they signed me right away. I had an agent. I started going to some auditions here and there, but I was nervous. Like I was a shy kid, and outside of my home, I was a terrified wreck. Like I was always nervous. I was very shy. And so in my auditions, I didn't do so well, and I didn't have any training. So I was very much like nerves, and I would blank a lot. And then I had one big audition for Lassie. I remember that when I was 13. Yeah, I remember that. And from there, I didn't get the part, but I got like training by one of my agents at the time. And then at the casting agency, which is still the biggest in Montreal, I walked out of the audition and they're like, you look a little like the lead actor in this Hallmark movie. Do you want to be a stand-in? And so my parents agreed, and I did 3 days of standing in. And and just to preface this, that for anybody who wants to be a stand-in or thinking about being a stand-in, it's a fun job. But at 13 years old, it is the best job in the world because I literally did nothing but craft table.
Yes. I was about
Craft
to say
table.
crafty.
Craft table. I ran for 20 minutes with the camera on me to get the frame right and all that, and then craft table. I sat down in front of the camera, then craft table. It was the most, and I would skip school for 3 days. I had a ball. I had a blast. I was like, this is it. I want to do this forever. But then high school came, and I was an awkward kid. I was going through growing pains, and so I got very shy, very self-conscious. And the agency, when I was, I think, maybe 15, 16, folded. So there was no more agency. So I now was left without an agent and not really confident in acting and not sure what I wanted to do in life and just very nervous. And then but in high school, I was such a shy kid, except in English class when the teacher made us read Robinson Crusoe. I think I'm saying it right. And he was like, you play this character and you read this character. And everybody else that was reading, but I put on a voice. So I was like, I don't know what the character was, but I was like one of the characters, and I made a random voice, and everybody was like, whoa, who's this kid who made this like out of nowhere? And then I did a play. I joined the like drama club, I guess, and then we did a play, and I played a grandmother, a female grandmother. So I came out of my shell in these moments, but I was still very shy outside of it, and I was terrified of acting classes at a young age, just because of being around young kids was still kind of like, I was very self-conscious. And then when I turned 18, I fell in love with, if you're listening to this, Kristen Crook. I fell in love with Kristen Crook in Edgemont. When I was around, I think, 16, 17, I started watching, and we would run from school to catch the episodes because of Kristen Crook. And I was like, I want to be on a show with this girl. She's so like amazing. And I read her the story of her, and it was that she was cast out of the blue because there was an open casting call at her school for Edgemont, and she was cast. And I was like, oh my God, that could happen. And then I watched 10 Things I Hate About You or Save the Last Dance, one of those two. And I followed it up anyways with the other one. But I think it was her first one, Julia Stiles, was Save the Last... it was 10 Things I Hate About You, I think.
I think so, yeah.
So I fell in love with Julia Stiles, and I was like, I want to be in that movie. I want to be on that, like, feeling like in that world. And then I read her biography, and again, she started, again, if it's accurate or not, but she started by submitting at a young age to Broadway directors that she wanted to be a part of a show. And then a director got her letter and auditioned her, and she got cast in her first Broadway show. And I was like, whoa, this happens. And then I read about Tom Welling, the Superman guy from Smallville. So again, Kristen Crook went to Smallville. So I was like, ooh, Smallville. And then I read his biography, and he was found at a pool hall by a modeling agency. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a model, so it's not going to happen that way. But maybe good luck could happen in being found. So at 18, I went on vacation with my family, and I just felt like something was missing. And I just was like, I want to feel that emotion that I was feeling when I saw these movies and watched these actresses and all that stuff. And so I said, I'm going to go apply again for an agent and get out there. And so I went to a bunch of agents in Montreal, and they all said the same thing. You have no experience. You're 18 now. 17, maybe I would have taken you. 18, no experience. Adult. So go do some short films, go take classes. And that's how I started the nonstop journey of taking classes for years and do auditioning for what's it called? School projects and short films and theater. I did 5-6 years straight of theater and continued to fall in love with it. But still, as a kid, there's still that shy part of me that is still very nervous when it comes to starting things and going into auditions. I still have terrifying fears of blanking in an audition room, especially when you get very seldomly called in to the room these days. And when you do, it's like a project, and there's one, maybe two casting or three in Montreal. So getting into one day, you're like, I want to do well, so they call me back, because if I mess up, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
So if I fuck up, I can. So I think that's anyways. That's the journey. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's the journey of pretty much how I started the acting, and then it's been since then. I think at the age of 24, 25, I really took it seriously, where I was taking every class possible. I read every book possible on all the techniques, and I got myself finally a new agent, and then things started to roll a little bit. And then we could talk about the other, the second life 0.5, which is the social media side of it, but that's a different branch.
Which we will for sure, because awesome. I love that side of it. But just take me back to, so before we talk about, that life that always happens between 17 to 18, right? When you are
magically
magically need experience, or you go off and say, oh yeah, you were a very creative kid, but go get a reasonable job. But I think that's really interesting what you said, and I clocked it and I want to remember it, about when you're a kid and your talent is considered natural and everyone's like, adorable. But when you're an adult, that is no longer the case.
Not so much, no.
Tell me more about that. What did that feel
like? I think as an adult, it just everything feels heavier, and we make it heavier too. Like, we overthink, we overdo, we overanalyze. We're told certain things, and I think that's I agree with it to a certain point, because as a kid, you have no filter really, and when people tell you things, you're like, you watch kids walking around talking to plants. Having different stories, and like my nieces and nephew they're small, they come up with ideas and stories like, we're going to play family today, and I'm the mom and you're the dad, and this is this, you're the baby.
They're the best improvisers.
Yeah. The imagination is crazy. And I was a kid at 13. I'm going to sound weird here, but between the ages of 7 and 16 even, I was playing with Lego dolls. Nice. Like those little Lego things, or I had even Ninja Turtles, and I was making scenarios of either it was a wrestling match, or they were in a meeting, or they were in I was just creating. And I even played hockey by myself in my room with one tennis ball. I was the goalie, but I was also the player, and I was doing the whole broadcast. I was like, here comes the puck, he passes it over, he shoots, oh, what a save. I was that kid. But when you get older, you're told to be quiet in class. You're told that, if you're eccentric, you're looked at like, oh, look at that kid. And so one funny story I would say, that I tried to get back to being comfortable with being crazy or imaginative, and to be comfortable as an adult in not caring about what people thought around me. So I did this on the bus from school in high school, and in university and CEGEP college. CEGEP is 2 years in Montreal, Quebec. I would sit at the bus, at the back of the bus. There used to be 4 seats. So I would sit in one of those seats. I'd have my headphones on, and I would sing out loud. And not super loud, but I'd be like, na 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 na, and I would groove to music. Why you gotta make things so complicated? I see the way. And my thought was, 1, nobody would sit beside me, so I'd have all the space to myself because I'm crazy. But 2, it was also a way to be okay, nobody cares, really. Everybody looks, but nobody actually cares. It didn't help fully, but it was a way for me to try. And that's where acting classes, I think, the more you do it, the more you get zoned into that moment, and you lose yourself in that moment. And that's kind of where that childlike play comes back. But I feel that that's the view, is that adults have so much going on at a certain age that you start overthinking everything. You're told that you can't be crazy or say whatever you want, or imagine things and play in front of the world. So then you need to find a way to channel it in an appropriate setting for camera and for theater and for acting. Whereas a child, you can be molded, right? You can be like, you are that famous audition video like tape of the kid that does ET in ET.
Oh, yes.
Imagine that now you're the alien's coming in and tells you that he's no longer your friend and no. Like the amazing interaction that did in the moment is like, that's a child.
Yeah.
Like, and you can see that they go from crying to happy to crying in 30 seconds. They drop their toy, they cry. They see another one, they're like, ah. It's beautiful to watch, and I think that's where the brain doesn't get in the way. As an adult, we have years of judgment and people looking at us funny and being told we're not this, being told we are this, being broken up with, being taken last in class for gym, whatever it is. And I find that's where we lose our ability to just feel and be, and our mind gets in the way. So I do see why that happens, but it's weird that there's an arbitrary age. That's 17 to 18. Not everybody. I'm sure some agents are like, no, it's at 12. But still, there's like an arbitrary age where all of a sudden, like, you have no experience. You got to actually work because you're no talent anymore. It's not innate. But I do believe that there are certain people that have a propensity for acting or creativity or that. And that's an innate thing, just like in sports, just like in any craft or art or anybody, even somebody who's a good networker. I think there's some people that are innately gifted with certain abilities that have them start higher up or make it easier for them to excel. And I think that's the difference, because I know some people, and a different topic again, but some people have that whole discussion about talent versus like natural talent versus education or like training. And that some people are like, some people are born actors and it's not for everybody. I'm like, anybody can be an actor. Anybody can be an actor. I think it requires a lot of training for some more than others, but some actors are innately able to feel right away, to be in the moment right away, to take the learnings that they're given and really excel at them faster. And some people can connect to their emotions better than others. Like, I'm not the greatest at crying on like a sentence. I'm great if I watch a movie where I see you cry, I'll fucking bawl. But in my moment of a scene where I have to talk and then all of a sudden talk emotionally, it's a work. I need to work on it. I need to train and to practice and to really access those emotions and take classes for it. But some people are like, so you are outside on a field. No, you don't have to cry yet. But like, that's where I see the difference between the talent side and the training side, because I do think anybody can be an actor. If you put somebody in a room for 20 hours and or 10 years and you train them every day for an hour, just like people learning a new language, eventually you will learn it. It may not be perfect. You may have an accent. You may all this like stumble on certain things, but you will learn. That's how we are as humans.
Well, I think this is an interesting thing about acting, right? We're compared to a lot of other careers, and I think it's what gives a lot of creative, more whimsical careers the sensation of you are lower on the social hierarchy because anyone can do it. And I think it's interesting, and I have this discussion with people, but also with myself about, like, you can teach facts to people. Like, I think about anyone can become an actor. Sure. You could be literally picked up out of a pool hall and said, congratulations, you're now famous and you're in Smallville, where you can't do that with like, congratulations, you're now a doctor. Congratulations, you're now a lawyer. Congratulations, you're now a police officer. You can't do that. There's licensing, there's certification, there's years of training you have to do. You have to legally do before the world says, yes, you can be this thing.
That's very true.
But I also wonder about, you can't teach in a classroom some of the innate sensations that are involved in a lot of creative careers and acting where you have to access feelings. I could teach anyone how to be a doctor, how to do the science part. They might be terrible at patient interaction because that's not, you can't teach that. These, what we call in
Exactly.
medicine, soft skills, which is a
Yeah.
terrible, terrible thing to say because I think they're actually more important in this world. But like
True.
I can teach anyone math. Give me
Yeah.
enough time, we can sit in a room. It might take a while, but I can teach you math. I can teach you how to calculate an anion gap and metabolic acidosis. I can do that. I can't teach you how to be nice to a person authentically.
True. Well, that's the uniqueness of each of us, right? So how you respond to an interaction is going to be completely different than somebody else. And depending on how you respond, some people connect with it and other people don't. Like if you are an empathetic person and very empathetic person, then you're very much geared to the art of, you know, listening and engaging and responding and behaving. Because if somebody talks to you and tells you that they're gonna, I don't know, lose their job tomorrow and their family, and you're gonna be devastated, and you're gonna see the reaction in the face, and you're gonna see the emotion. Whereas some people are like, oh, that's sad, I'm terrified, I'm really feel bad for you, and they're just naturally, that's their personality. As an actor, I think you can teach that to somebody, like, oh, you're somebody like this all the time. But if somebody tells you you need to show that you're sad, so you're like, oh,
am I doing it? Am I doing sad?
Yeah. And so you can, and that's where I do believe that there is a difference. There are certain actors and certain people that are meant for the job because they have innately certain qualities that allow them to do this at an easier or a facility with it, or at a more, or just even have a more engaging aura. Like, you know, some people's faces is also huge. Like some people are very expressive and all that, and it's sometimes too jarring for TV or for acting. And then you have people that are just very calm, and everything happens in their eyes, and their eyes are so expressive. And I remember in class, you watch these actors or actresses, and you're like, I saw everything in your eyes. Like everything was, your eyes are just so expressive. They're big. They're like, they emit emotion. And then you have other people that are like that. They need the body motion. So I think it's a difference. I do agree with you. I do believe that the creative skills are considered less. They're considered less heavy on like credibility and training in terms of education, and because people are like, oh, you were born with the gift of emotion. You were born with the gift of hockey, but in reality, nobody's actually born with it fully. Like they're born with a propensity to be better at it than others because they start at I remember the whole story about all the Connor McDavids and the Wayne Gretzky's. They were on the ice more than any other player. They trained harder than every other player, but they also had the ability, because their hand-eye coordination or their speed or just their IQ to understand things was faster. People who understand math, like I can do math. I would need hours of training to figure out certain things, but if I really spend hours and fight through my frustration and boredom and lack of interest, I will get there. But there's some people that are like, I see it, that's the square, and it's just the brain that it works. And I think for actors and the creative side, it's the same thing. Some people are great at visualizing the scene, and they're good directors. They're like, I see it. I can see 10 steps ahead. I see the outcome. But you can train that. It's just not going to be as like seamless, I guess, or as easy for that. It looks easy. It looks natural. And I guess that's where it goes. Oh, you're naturally gifted. But I think that you're right. I think that the creative skill sets tend to be perceived as, it's just like, it's not that hard. It's just part of them. It's like, so it's you can train and you can do that, but it's just that person just so that's them.
Yeah. Their essence. Yeah. Something you said, I want to just go back on, and it's very like factual about your life. You mentioned university in Cégep. Did you take theater acting in either of those places, or what did you do after high school?
Not at all. So I was a shy kid, very self-conscious. I did not have the easiest high school life. I was awkward. I was like one of the weird kids, I guess. Towards the end, I started getting more popular, and I played soccer. So I played for one of the grades. I think we were secondary 4, and I played for the team, and we beat Sec 5, and it was like a big thing. So I was like popular now. But CJEP, I studied again. I was raised by immigrant parents, so it was like you need a steady career. I wanted to be an actor and a soccer player, both are. And back then there was no MLS Montreal team, and so my parents were just like, "It's great, it's nice that you want to do this, but you need a stable job, and you need money. So figure it out of something." And they were very open to me figuring it out. But so I was like, what is the standard traditional thing? I wasn't good enough for health sciences and all that stuff. Even if I had some thoughts of maybe I could be a lawyer, a doctor, all that, didn't have the grades. So I was like, I'll do management. So I went into management, and then I went to McGill University and I got into management, and I thought of doing marketing because it was the creative side of management. And so I was like, I like the creative side of management. And then I fell in love with psychology in university, because luckily that time period I was there, they started a management psychology program, which was like a major in psychology, but within the management department. And I initially was like, that's weird, but I took some classes in psychology and I fell in love with it. They're like interpersonal relationships, cognition. And that's when I fell in love with the brain and all the ways that we interact with people, because it fit with my creative, social kind of like acting side. It was, oh, how do they think? Why are they acting like that? What makes people do this? And I was very much a student of like the brain and interactions and people. So that's kind of what I ended up in university. I graduated with that. And then at that time, I started back into acting classes and hoping that would be, my passion to turn to career, but I needed stability. So I went into work. I actually applied and got into Waterloo for communications and theater major, but I couldn't afford it. So I went to work and I started in the customer service realm, and then went into marketing for a company for 15 years.
Wow. And then, so are you still working in marketing? What do you do?
I got laid off last year.
Oh.
So last year I was laid off, and so I don't know if we want to get into the whole social media side of it, but during the 15 years of working at this company in marketing, and I went from like marketing coordinator to global marketing manager. So I went through the ranks. But during that time, I was still following acting. I was still passionate about it, still hoping and dreaming that I would make it big into acting and have to quit my job and have a beautiful career. And so I would take classes every week. I would do multiple classes. I would apply for short films. I would audition here and there, but Montreal is very cyclical. Summer times, a little more auditions, winter times, quiet. And so I was not getting a lot of like bites or auditions, and it was tough. And then I went through a breakup, and I was scrolling through, going through the internet. And at the time, Vine was this big thing. And so I was watching Vine, and I'm looking at these young people making 6-second videos that look like nothing. Like literally, it's like the least amount of effort you could put into something, but it was hilarious and creative. And they were starting to get visibility. And these people weren't actors. They were just regular people, most of them. And I was in my head sitting on the couch going, I'm waiting for auditions. Nothing's happening. They keep saying, make your own work, make your own work. But at the time, it was hard to get cameras and crew and doing everything yourself. But all of a sudden, there's a Vine. You can film 6 seconds, do this, edit it on iMovie if you wanted to, or directly on just like a recording thing, and post it and potentially be seen. So I was like, okay, I'm not getting seen in the regular sphere of the traditional media of acting industry. Maybe this will get me seen. So I started thinking about that, and I had no experience in editing, filming, any of that. And then again, the brain kicks in, And I'm thinking, if I do this and somebody in the industry sees it, they're going to go, this guy's not serious. This is not real acting. And kind of like the stigma of theater to TV or to movies, and then movies to TV, and then TV to streaming, and how that all evolved. There's still, I think, it's still there. It's becoming more important to be on social media, but it's still there. There's a stigma of social media actors that it isn't acting. And so I didn't want to do that. So I started with a Mickey Mouse doll in front of the camera, and I just was hiding, and I was like, oh boy, that's so exciting. Look at this. And I made these ridiculous 6-second Mickey Mouse, like a little bit edgy. So he was on a date. He was putting on stuff. He was like in bed naked, like as Mickey doll could be. And I was just like, this is amazing. Let's do this amazing thing. That started, and it got a bit of views. And then I was like, well, nobody's watching really on Vine. Nobody knows about Vine in the industry yet. So I slid myself into a video slowly. And then I did a meditation video where I'm sitting there and all I'm doing is trying to meditate for 6 seconds, but the thoughts are like a voiceover of thoughts in my head. And I kind of swipe away at like a fly, and I'm just not peaceful. And that did not bad. And then I put a character, which is a French-Canadian therapist named Charlie, for 6 seconds talking about, like, he's a therapist, but he's a bad therapist. And he's got a therapy session with me. And I go, well, let me put in my 2 cents or something. And then the character goes, what? I put in for 2 cents? That is insane. Like, and that was 6 seconds. And that kind of did a little bit of virality on Vine. And I was like, okay, seems to be working. But I didn't want to typecast myself as that character. So I could put him once every couple months, and then I would start inviting friends and actors to do small sketches. So I would create improvised sketches. I had an idea. I was like, you do this, and we would work together and create 6-second sketches on Instagram, on Vine. And then Vine died. And Instagram did 15-second videos. So I moved and migrated to 15-second videos. And then they moved it to 30 seconds. Then they moved it to a minute. And then they moved it to 10 minutes. And so I evolved with that. I learned to edit. I started writing scripts instead of improvisational sketches. I basically, my mandate at that time was I will work with every actor to try to get us visibility. Because we weren't getting auditions. So I want people to get visibility. So I would write for the first 3 to 4 years. I would call or reach out to actors, or they would reach out to me. I would write sketches for them, and I would be the secondary actor. And that went on for 3 to 5 years, and it was all variety of relatable topics that had nothing to do with like one thing. And every once in a while, the therapist would show up, but not really like consistently. And then after 5 years, I wasn't really getting visibility. It wasn't growing, so I felt kind of bad. So I was like thinking, so 2 things happened. I then started doing Monday Motivation videos, which was a series where I wanted to showcase actors and how their journey is and how we all have the same issues. And it was for myself cathartic, but also to show and to promote actors and artists. So I interviewed, I think it ended with 200 artists about their careers with very 5 questions on like what motivates you, what inspires you, what's the hardest thing, so I did that for a couple of years. But at the same time, I also started, one of my friends was like, you promote everybody else but yourself. You're not being seen. Like, you're just a side note of these videos. Maybe you should focus to show your talent. So I have a hard time with that. I'm like, I don't like to be the center of attention. So, which is weird because I'm talking nonstop, and it's like, hey, Janet, you're not talking at all.
No, I feel the same way. Everything about what you're saying, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. Yeah.
So I switched it, and I started playing. And again, it took time because then I made it equal. And then I would feel bad that I would invite somebody for 2 lines when I was doing the entire scene. But eventually I started playing off of like finding that I was one of the main characters and not just a secondary character. And I found a balance. And then COVID hit. So I couldn't work with anybody because we weren't allowed to have anybody over. So I was like, I had this French Canadian therapist character. I had this Russian character that I started playing around with. Initially, he was rating TV shows and movies, and he was just like 5 Kremlins out of 5 on the. And so that was one character, and I named him Oleg. And then I had the idea of like, well, we're all stuck at home during COVID. Let's do a 3 roommates stuck at home and 3 different roommates, and that evolved. I'm jumping a little ahead because there was just before COVID, TikTok started, and TikTok started at 15 seconds of video. That was initially their stuff. It was 15 seconds, and I was on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube making 3-minute shorts, scripted, good editing, lighting, special effects, all that stuff. So I was like already on that level where I was like, this is more than just a sketch. And then comes TikTok, and I'm seeing that everybody's talking about TikTok. And I open the app, I'm like, this is Vine on crack. This is the same thing as Vine, but on crack.
Yes.
And I'm seeing again the same pattern. These TikTok creators becoming stars, becoming visible to the world, visibility's out there. At that time, my Instagram was at 1,200 followers. I wasn't growing. I was getting 20 views for these 3-minute sketches that took me a week to do. I was posting 1 video a week, working every day to edit and then write and then film on the weekends. It was a lot. And so I go on TikTok. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm not going backwards to Vine. I'm not doing this again. So I was like, but it seems to be the medium that people are watching on. So I took an old video of the therapist and posted it. And like one of the original videos. And then I went to New York, and I drove from Montreal to New York, and I crossed the border, and I made a video where the moment you cross New York, you go from being like to like all the construction and the potholes with my French Canadian accent, and that went viral. And I grew to 20,000 followers in like a week. And I was like, well, I guess I need to be typecast. So I started posting all my old videos of the therapist, and they all kept growing and growing. And then the pandemic hit, and then TikToks went from 15 seconds to a minute. And then things evolved from there. And then I started talking about COVID, and that also evolved, but with comedy. I made it into like comedic sketches and rants. And and it all kind of rolled from there. Not really sure where that question ended up.
No, it's incredible, I think, because, and I have a couple questions. Cégep and university.
Didn't do theater.
But I think, what's so great about this, and I have 2 things I want to touch on. What's so great about this, obviously, is you get to be creative, you get to have things seen, you are hilarious. I love watching the videos. They bring me so much joy. As an aside, I know one of your videos that went so viral was the one, I don't even think you're in it, about the bench in Vancouver.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just you're showing this bench in Vancouver that has and people just went crazy about it. Yeah. It's just
and this is the beauty and frustration of social media.
Yeah.
I was in Vancouver for vacation for a week. I show up. I went to visit my friend. He was in a conference, and he was like, "I'll meet you in an hour. I still have the conference to go, so just walk around." It's raining. It's drizzling. It was like that for the 3 days. Yeah, sounds like Vancouver. It sounds like right now in Montreal too. But so it was like a cloudy, grayish day. So I'm walking around, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's by the water, like
Falls Creek?
just before Stanley Park. There's a bend. So there's a bend, and there's like these yachts and boats and water. And I'm just walking around, and I'm just staring, and it's raining a little bit and drizzling and gray, and I'm waiting. And I see this bench, and I was like, oh, I want to sit there, but it's wet. And why is it not facing the water? I'm like, the bench is facing a highway. And the water is beautiful, and the view is so nice. Why did they put the bench that way? So I'm like, that's weird. Let me make a quick comment on this. So I take out my phone, I go on Instagram, I do a story where I record the story in my character voice of French Canadian. I'm like, I don't understand, but I'm shy to do it in public, so I'm quietly initially the first take. I'm like, what is this? Can somebody explain? And when somebody passes, I'm like, oh. And I need to get myself psyched up to do this. And eventually I kind of let loose, and I'm just like, what has happened? Why is this not facing that way? And then there's the highway over there, and that makes no sense to me. I think somebody make a mistake. You just need to flip it. And then that make it, and it was like a 15-second, 17-second video. Didn't think much of it. I just posted because I needed content. I had nothing going on at the time. I was on vacation. So I posted it on Instagram and TikTok. And all of a sudden, it got to like 200,000 views on TikTok within like 2 hours. It got to like, Instagram was quiet. It was 30,000 views on Instagram within 3 days. I went on my merry way on my vacation. This was I think it was day 3 or 2 of my vacation. And so I kept my merry way. I added a few other videos along the way that I thought was funny. And again, were commentary on Vancouver, certain signs or the beach or whatever. Like there was a street called Quebec and it was under construction. I was like, well, that makes sense. So I posted these things, and there was nothing going crazy. That video was at 250,000. Comments were like, oh my God, I know that thing. Oh my God, yeah, that's true. Well, they had one job. How come? It doesn't make sense. I've seen that bench all the time. That was all that was happening. It was nothing crazy. I come home, and the next day I go for coffee, and I walk around, and I get a pop-up on my notification, and it's this page called Narcity Vancouver shared your video. I'm like, what video? Like, did they take from my old videos that went on? Because I had a video that was shared once by Narcity Canada or Quebec or MTL blog. And so I was like, what is this? And I see that they shared this bench video. But not only that, they wrote a whole article on my journey in Vancouver titled like French Canadian Roasts Vancouver. And they had all the article was actually really nice. It was just like he's this guy from Montreal, and he came to visit, and it's raining, and he's poking fun at some of the Quebec things that are looking kind of similar. And this one bench video, and she puts all these videos from TikTok on the article. And I'm looking at the article. I'm like, that's a really nice article, but the title was French Canadian Roast Vancouver. And then it gets shared by Narcity Canada. And then it gets shared by MTL blog. And then it gets shared by another page. And that explodes into 2.5 million views on Instagram. TikTok goes to like 1 million. And the comments become, because people don't care about the actual content, they read the title or the first 2 seconds of a thing. So my page basically said like Francophone confused about like something or on vacation, and then the title was French Canadian Roasts Vancouver. Go back to Quebec, nobody wants you, insults, like you're an idiot, who the fuck is this? Like but another page reposted just the video, and it was a page from Vancouver, reposted the video, and it got to like 50,000 views in like 20 minutes, but it didn't have a horrible title or like a provocative title. It just said, look at this video. And the comments were from people from BC and Vancouver that were agreeing with the content. They were like, oh my God, that's hilarious. This is so true. So it just was like so crazy to see that a title changed the entire conversation. Yeah. And then I get a call from my agent. I'm at work still at that time. And I'm in this meeting, and I get a call from my agent. I'm like, I'm going to mute you. I'm sorry, I have an emergency. I'm like, my agent, what's going on? I'm thinking because I just had an audition for some, I think it was a commercial or a TV show or something, or a Christmas movie. And I'm like, hello? She's like, so somebody reached out from Radio Canada in Vancouver. They want to interview you for some bench video. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? She's like, yeah, and it's going to be in French. I'm like, what? Vancouver has a French radio station?
Nah.
So I went on this French Radio Canada spot in Vancouver, while from Montreal in Vancouver. And
oh my God,
it went like crazy. Like it just blew up like wildfire. But it made me go, I work so hard on certain videos. I spent hours writing, hours editing, hours filming, thinking about the ideas. I post it, 300 views, 1,000 views, whatever.
Yeah.
Still great. Again, I appreciate every view. Again, in retrospect, or in like when you think about it, if you put yourself in a room and there's 300 or 1,000 people watching you, that's insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because we've been conditioned to see virality and how like it becomes famous and all that stuff, you kind of you forget that 300 is amazing. So I would get 300 views. I'm like, I've made 100,000 views. It's nothing, 300. So you make these videos and they don't really go as far as you'd like. Let's say that way. But then you start filming like these random 13-second videos that you just pick up on the spot. You're like, all right, whatever. This sounds funny. I'm going to say it. Pops up and you're like, what? The effort that goes into the thing you want to do well versus what you don't really, you do it on spontaneous. So sometimes I feel social media works in mysteriously funny, annoying ways that way. But then again, you probably have seen this video because I reposted it recently. But I spent hours on that video of the names of like nicknames of people or short names of people, like William is Bill and Robert is Bob and Richard is Dick. And I spent hours on that video. I had 6 different characters, and at the time I was editing widescreen, and I had all of the characters on the screen at the same time. So I had to record everybody's lines and then push the button, be quiet, and then respond, and then edit it into like with masks. And it was an insane amount of hours. And at the time, it didn't do that well. And then TikTok and Instagram changed like to shorts, and I edited down and I put it into just the vertical frame. But anyways, that's just to say that the internet is weird and crazy in mysterious ways. And that bench video was one of my most viral videos to date. And it was with no fake.
No, oh my gosh. Well, and so I have an opinion on, well, not an opinion on social media. I have a thought, and it's not an original one. It was something that a director told me, and it kind of made me go, oh, interesting. And it's the idea that, yes, we see TikTok influencers becoming quote unquote famous, but it's such a rarity to have them be successful in film and TV, because their audience doesn't go see film or watch TV. Their audience watches them on TikTok and YouTube. They're not going to go see them in the theater, regardless if they're in a movie or not. And so this director I spoke to had a TikTok superstar cast in one of their films. And they were like, yeah, this is going to do so great. But then any financier was like, no, they're not worth that, because their audience lives on TikTok and YouTube. They will not go see it in theaters, and they will not watch it on Netflix. What are your thoughts?
I don't disagree, because I think I've seen some examples. I remember, I forgot, I don't know his name pretty specifically. I'm going to name him if poorly. I'm sorry for butchering names. Something Bodeker on TikTok and Instagram, but he was on TikTok. He's an actor, like an actual actor.
Yeah.
But he went viral during the pandemic on TikTok with his hilarious videos, and amassed, I think, over a million, maybe even more, 2 million followers. And then he created a short film. He wrote and directed and produced a short film with him and other creators. And he sold it. He tried to sell it online to his followers, and not many responded. And he came out and he was disappointed. And I remember those videos were he was trying to promote his short film, but nobody was purchasing it. And because it's a different medium, it's not your 1 minute digestible content. Like influencers and creatives or actors on social media, I think more and more you're seeing this, is that they can probably sell a ton of stuff. If they have millions of followers, they can probably sell, if it's in their niche, within their purview, I guess, they can sell you stuff. So they can sell you merch, they can sell you what's it called, digital content, They can sell courses. They can sell all these things that are related to what they're talking about, makeup, whatever you want. Actors, to go to, like you said, to go to theater or to the movies or to that, unless it's specifically with, if they're doing characters, their characters. Like I did a live sketch show with a friend, Michelle Furtado, who's an amazing also talent. And we decided to put on a live sketch show based on our characters. And 100% of the tickets sales went to the Montreal Children's Hospital for charity. And initially, when we talked about it, I was like, I want to do a live show, see if we can make this something interesting, and put myself, again, stretch my comfort zone. So we talked about it, and we're like, all right, let's write it and let's sell it and try to put it out there and promote it. And we did it all ourselves, like self-produced, went to find a space, wrote everything, went to try to get sponsors. And so when we launched it, in my head, my first thought was the hopefulness of me. I'm always, the first one is hope, then it's dread. So I started with hope. I'm like, I'm going to post it, and within 20 minutes, it's going to sell out. There's 250 tickets. We're going to sell out in 2 minutes. It's going to be insane. And then we're going to be like, well, why didn't we just make more stuff? The second thought was, watch we sell 20 tickets for the entire show. And we're just going to be doing it to like our family and friends. It's going to be the weirdest, worst decision we made. And what I learned was the first day I posted it, we sold 4 tickets. And I was like, shit. Second day, 10 tickets. And then it quieted. And then I was like, okay, let me reshare something. Let me talk about it again. And then that aspect of marketing kicked in, of you need to remind people so many times that something is valuable or is there, that they may forget because they're busy with their lives and all this stuff. And within 2.5 weeks, we sold out. And then we even added 20 extra tickets, and now those sold out in 10 minutes. And to me, it showed 2 things. One is you need to continuously promote and market, and you have to have visibility in order to do that. 2, I feel like it has to be related to what you're known for, what people are fell in love with. If you are an actor who is on TikTok talking like this all the time and talking about makeup or food, and then you are in a movie that has nothing to do with any of that, most people probably won't care. To go to the theater, if you're from the States and your audience is from the rest of the world, you're probably not going to get them to go to the theater. To go to watch on Netflix, maybe. Like there are certain, like I do think that having visibility on social media, because I posted that I was on a movie and then people started sharing that they've watched it. Oh, where can I see this scene of you? And then they go see it. But they know I'm an actor and my content is creative. But again, it's not, and some people also love the journey, right? If you start out and you're succeeding and they're like, oh my God, you made it. Like I have a TikTok commercial right now airing. It's Armstrong Cheese. Everybody that sees it starts messaging me that they've seen it. I'm on TikTok. And even on the ad, in the comments, they tag me and they're like, oh my God, you've made it. Oh my God, it's so great to see you. Congratulations. And I think because you're part of that, they're part of that journey with you. If I've spoken about it, if I was just doing cooking TikToks and all of a sudden I made it to a movie, it might be a little harder for people to go see it.
Yes.
And then it's like you said, the audience. It's like if you're a 16-year-old kid that's huge on TikTok, 16-year-olds don't go to the theater. 16-year-olds don't necessarily watch as much streaming as most adults do. They are YouTubers, they're Twitch streamers, they're all that stuff. So I do think that you could look at Twitch streamers and even Viners at the time, and even TikTokers, I guess, when they go to the street. Like there's a Twitch streamer recently that had the NYPD have to come out, and like Times Square was overrun by kids because they wanted to see him. That isn't, like, you don't see as much of that anymore by actors coming out. Like you're seeing this by social media people. So I agree to a point. Like it depends on who you take, what their audience is, who their audience is, and what they do on social media. I think I think that there's opportunities for actors to grow an audience on social media and to have people see their process and their development and growth and have cheerleaders from that and people support them. Does it sell tickets? I don't think that there's enough of a yes to that to be because I think that's what the thought was, and that's why now it's dying. That whole I'm going to take a TikTok star to put him in a movie. They did that initially with a bunch of these TikTok stars. The problem I had with that is these TikTok stars weren't actors.
Yeah. Yes.
They were TikTok stars.
Yeah.
And when you put them in a 2-hour movie to hold on to lead a cast versus a 30-second viral clip for somebody who dances and does some weird things or just like performs quickly an improvised sketch, you see glaringly the I think the barrier or the lack of potentially to lead a movie right off the bat.
Yes.
So I think there's that. Like if you as an actress or me as an actor go into this medium and work and show our process and show our acting skills and put our abilities out there, and some director or a producer sees that we have 1 million followers and we can act, I hope that they give us a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if nowadays, but that's why I told you in the beginning about social media is that I think there's still a stigma. I do think that there's, he's on social media acting.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know. I think it is, I agree with you, glaringly obvious when I've seen influencers in film. And it's funny, when you were saying that, it made me think about some of the video game auditions that I've done because you, and in those video game auditions, you are now that character, the playable character, not just for 2 hours in a film, not just for 40 minutes in a TV show, not just for 15 seconds on a TikTok or Vine or whatever. You are the playable character that somebody needs to want to play with for 40 to 50 hours. They cannot get bored of you. They can't get annoyed with you and your voice, the way you move, everything about you. You can't be annoying because you want the person to say, you are the playable character I want to be with for literally 2 days of hours, right? Well, I wonder if that's very similar with like a TikTok influencer, right? Like people being like, no, I don't want to be with this person for 2 hours. I just really like their little short form. And you know what? As an aside, I just saw one of my favorite sketch comedians, besides yourself, Laura Ramoso, who's a Canadian TikTok celebrity. She does incredible sketches, German mom, Italian dad. She's so funny. I saw her live, and it was jarringly different. And my brain did not quite compute at the beginning that I wasn't going to see her being her TikTok self, which is literally impossible because you're cutting quickly between different scenes. You can't do that live. Yep. And so it took a bit to adjust, and it was still delightful. You're like, right, I'm sitting with her, watching her do this, and it's so completely different. It had to be a switch in my brain saying, no, this is a different thing. Don't think of her as your TikTok self.
That's the whole
it's
typecast,
weird.
Right?
Totally, yes.
But that's where it's like, and you said something that reminded me again of our topic earlier about the innate side of things with acting and how you're born with it, and you are born with your looks and you're born with your voice. You can manipulate it a little bit, but you just said something very true. It's like Morgan Freeman wouldn't be Morgan Freeman if his voice was like, "Hello, I'm Morgan Freeman. Welcome to And so some people are, sadly, unfortunately, we are a society and a culture, and it's just how our brains work, and how our brains have been also conditioned through years and years of all these like mediums, is that beauty is captivating, voice is captivating. If you have a very loud voice that you get, like, it's hard to hear. Some people have very loud voices. Some people have annoying voices. Some people have nasally voices, and we've been accustomed to what is a beautiful, engaging tone. And so that, as an aside, that's where in the creative space, and especially acting and creating and film and TV and now video games and voice, you can't always control it. Like it's sometimes you're just like, wow, this guy has the most amazing voice. Done. You can't beat that. Like I've noticed, and that was something that I was told by my agent, which I thought was a great, it really made me understand things a little better for voice, because I'm like, I want to be in voice. I want to do voice commercials. I want to get on the video games. I want to do animation, all that stuff. But I was like, at least get into voice commercials. Like I've been doing some auditions, but I'm like, I'm not getting. I need to work on it. I know that. I need more practice and training. But I was like, how come I'm not getting it? And she was like, don't worry. The commercial voice space is very cyclical too, depending on the economy, depending on on what's going on. So she was like, during COVID, it was like, right now it's everybody's scared and fearful, and there's a lot of anxiety. So you need a comforting voice. And so you usually get women that have comforting voices or men that have comforting voices. And then if you need to be selling something, you need an authority, you get these deep voices. And I was like, where do I fall into this? And she's like, you have a sarcastic voice. I'm like, great. So she's like, but there is a point in time when sarcastic comedic voices are needed. And I'm like, cool, I'll wait for that time. But that's where it's like, I can work on lowering my register, getting a little deeper, but I can't change my voice completely unless I do thousands and thousands of hours of work on, training my voice. But that's where going back to the innate, on the second part of your thing with seeing a person live, that was the fear we had. They're expecting us to do this, and we are usually, and that's where I find the difference between actors and just content creators, online influencers. We've had training in memorizing lines. We've had training in improvisation. So when we went on stage, we wrote out 2-minute to 5-minute scenes with these characters, and we worked them and workshopped them and rehearsed them, and then went on stage and we did these bits. And so we were like, we're giving the people that love us what they want to see. We didn't make it different. We didn't have random characters that they never heard of. We had the characters that they loved, and we put them in scenarios that they would appreciate, that worked the best. And then we did a second show because we applied for the Just for Laughs Zoo Fest, and we got in last year. And we took what we filmed, we recorded the entire thing the first time, and we looked at what got laughs and what didn't. And so we chopped down the scenes and we re-rehearsed them. We rewrote some other sketches. And again, we put it live, and the response was great. But some people even wrote, we wanted to see more of them, because that's what, and we were keeping it short. We had an hour, and we had stand-up comedians also coming in between. So I can understand where it's jarring, because you're used to quick cuts, different sound effects, close-ups, and all of a sudden the person's just themselves talking or trying to do what they did on TikTok, and either that's not their strength, or they're not able to create the magic without the editing and the other post stuff. So it's an interesting music. A lot of influencers use music.
Yes.
And it's not the same when you're live.
No, totally. Do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up? Or any projects or anything like that that's coming up for you? 2024. Now that it's finally February and January is behind us.
Yeah, and that the strike is over.
Yes.
Well, knock on wood, the Canadian unions in negotiation soon. So,
yes.
Anything coming up? Honestly, right now, no. Right now, I'm mainly just content to create content and ideas to do more sketches. I applied for The Amazing Race and we didn't get it. I don't think we did. I really wanted to. I was with Michelle and we were like, let's do The Amazing Race. And we thought it would be a great and get me out of my comfort zone on different ways.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we didn't hear back. We thought we'd at least get to the second round or something, but we didn't hear back. So there's nothing really in terms of TV and film. I'm auditioning. There is the strong commercials going around on TikTok. yeah, so it's still just auditioning, doing some dubbing here and there,
Nice.
and hoping for other auditions and other opportunities. But I have, oh, actually, I do, because it's so fresh and so many things going on in my life right now. I'm going to be part of a play, so I'm going back to theater for the first
Cool.
time in like almost 10 years.
Hell yeah.
It's called, is it called something God?
God of
I'm so
Carnage?
bad. No, no, hold on. I will find it and figure this out. I
Yeah,
know
no
what it
worries.
is. Act of God.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much a one-man show, but I'm not the one-man show. It's Donald Reese with Brave New Production,
Hmm.
with Emma McQueen as the director and Stephanie McKenna as the other character, and it's two angels. So I'm one of the angels, and she's another angel, and Donald is God.
Cool.
And it's a hilarious play. And so I don't know when I think maybe in May. I don't know,
Mm.
but it's going to be in Montreal.
In Montreal?
And so we're starting rehearsals shortly. So that's happening, which I
Yeah.
like. I'm a little nervous as well because it's been a long time that I haven't been on stage since at least I think almost 10 years now. So yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
what's happening at the moment. If I'm thinking out loud, yeah.
Cool. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Yeah, I read your questions, and I think I spoke so much that we didn't
No,
answer any.
I don't care.
I
But
don't
this is
care.
this is what I love about this show. I have these questions and I'm like, sure, if we get to them, whatever. But like you and I just like that was such a cool, interesting conversation about
It was.
something that I've never talked about in any of my other podcast episodes. Is that it? Because you are the first like quite significant social media influencer TikToker that I've had, and I think it's a huge conversation and something
It
that
is.
I've wanted to talk to people about, and I think people are going to want to hear about. So, like, sure, I have 107 episodes of people answering those questions that I wrote down. This is completely new, and I loved
Okay.
every second of it. Like, it's
Awesome.
so cool.
I'm glad that it can be of interest to everybody
Oh
else
my
because
god,
it
yeah.
is. I would actually, to answer your question, I think it would probably be aligned with a little bit of that. I think I worked full time for 15 years while pushing and pursuing my passion and my desired career, like path. Um, it was not easy because it was 9 to 5 and then 6 to midnight, sometimes 2 a.m. It's a sacrifice for like social life. It's a sacrifice for a lot of stuff that I did, and it was a lot. But there is a way to do what you love while not sacrificing your like entire world. Whereas like if you need to live financially some stability, you can still have a full-time job while pursuing your career now more than ever because of social media. And I would tell every actor, to me, this is my opinion, I don't know. I think the acting industry is one of the least active on social media in terms of showing themselves and their personality. Like musicians show their process. It's like more and more. Sorry for all the universal musicians right now on TikTok, but musicians show their process. They talk about what's going on. They show how they're learning their like the discovering their music. They promote the hell out of their music. Artists that paint, whatever creatives use social media to show their work, but also their process. As actors, there's not a lot. There are, but it's not again seen as a standard or acceptable to show our work. We don't show our rehearsals. We don't show our classes. We don't show our breakdowns. We don't show how we think about character work. We don't show the missed the auditions and self tapes. I do admit that again, there's a little bit of a hard, thinner line because of the fact that you can't necessarily show an audition that's not been aired yet because of legal ramifications. But acting classes, training on acting classes, for acting class, showing your self-tape that you did from 8 years ago, talking about the process of acting, how you do your stuff. We don't have enough of that because I think as actors, we are afraid to show that we're not perfect. Because then, well, if you're not really good on camera and showing this, why would a director or a casting actually take you? And so we have this fear of showing our like vulnerability of as an actor, as an artist, of our work. And on the other side is also, I've seen actors do really well because they start doing their like monologues all the time and they show their talent. This is the medium today that you have no excuse to not be able to shoot yourself and show yourself on camera. You can't say, I'm waiting for auditions, I'm not getting any calls, nobody's seeing me, and all that. So I would say, as advice for anybody who starts acting, 3 things. Number 1, if you are worried about financially, you can still pursue your career by starting one step at a time while after work. And you have the ability to do that because of number 2, which is social media. You have the tools in front of you. You have no excuses to get yourself on camera, to show what you can do, to write whatever you want to portray yourself and show your talent and ability. And 3, I forgot what it was. What was 3? No excuse. Social media. Oh, network. Network the shit out of this industry. As much as I hate to say it, it is another thing that as actors we struggle with, or artists struggle with, is when you tell people it's not what you know, it's who you know. They're like, that's not, I'm talented. My talent's going to speak for itself. Nobody's going to see you. Nobody's going to watch you. Nobody's going to want to hire you or work with you if they don't know who you are. Even if they see how talented you are, if you get on set for the first time and they don't know you and they are uncomfortable, they won't call you back. They won't see you and they won't want to work with you. But if you go to events and you go to these networking things and you submit yourself for short films and you help other actors and you help other projects and meet people, you will, and hopefully, again, I'm going to say what Seth Rogen said, which I thought was amazing, that you might get a chance to get a career in acting. I've noticed more and more that it's who you know that gets you in the door. It's what you know and the talent that you have and the work ethic and your like talent and skill and experience that keeps you going, that brings you back, and your personality. Because if you're a piece of shit on set, no matter how talented you are, nobody's going to work with you again. Most people won't. But unless you're at a bazillion followers with a bazillion dollars and tons of people knowing you, you could be an asshole then, which I don't condone. But I still see, you know, people coming back into the spotlight after being assholes and doing some stupid things. But overall, I'd say 3 things. Follow your passion no matter what the hurdles are. Take it slow. Just get yourself on camera. Put yourself out there. Use social media to show your process and your work, because you never know who's watching. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years now on social media. I'm still not where I would like to be in terms of, like, my thoughts initially was that some director or casting or somebody would say, I like this guy. This is a great character. I want to give him his own show. I want to audition him for this. It's happened sporadically here and there, but not to the, even like, oh, this guy's so creative, I want to give him like art creative direction for like in my entire project. I was hoping that somebody would see it to boost me into a new career path, or to enhance my acting career. It hasn't happened yet. I've gotten little wins here and there, pat on my back for all that stuff. But it's also been really good for training, keep yourself on camera, writing, memorizing lines, tweaking, improvising, all that stuff. So social media. And 3, network the shit out of it. I'm not a good networker. I don't like it, but you got to do it. You got to get out there, and you know, it's exhausting. Like, at the end of every networking event, I'm like, 3 days of rest, please. I'm done sleeping. But it is so valuable and important. And I know it's frustrating for artists because it's like, I just want my talent to show my talent and to be taken for my talent and be given an opportunity. And this industry is very, as much as it gives opportunities, yes, there's a lot of gatekeepers and there's a lot of small communities, but again, all based on the people, the network. Because it's like any job. If you work at a company and you connect with somebody, you're going to go to lunch with them. Then you're going to go, oh, I have an idea. You're really good at that. Let's do this together. Or so human nature, it's not because people, this industry is shitty or different or that. Human nature in every business, it's the people you know and the people you work with that later on might be like, oh, I remember Janet. She used to do this. Oh, I'm now working at this company. I'll bring her over because she was great at that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just because you were terrific at your job. It was because she liked working with you or he liked working with you.
Yeah.
So I would say that don't disregard networking as one of the biggest things, that this is a business. That was in my notes. It was like, what was the surprise that you found about acting? I'm like, it's a business.
They call it
Like,
show business.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, Nir, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for being one of the most delightful things on social media these days. That's a very personal opinion. I'm sure y'all can figure out what you love on in social media yourself. But for me, like I said in my intro, when I'm scrolling the Insta like we do, and one of Nir's videos is there, it just fills me with joy. So if you too would like to be filled with joy, and I really hope you would, please go follow him on all of his social media. They are just wonderful. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!